of scenarios. Behind you, Vicki.
Hi, I have a general question. My question is, I heard several times saying that I'm your mom, so I deserve to know what's going on, right? And then, but when our kids turn to like 14, when they go to see doctors, the doctors would always ask for the permission from the kids to say if your parents can be around to hear what you say to the doctor. So that gives the kids the impression that they are older enough to have any kind of those kind of things as the personal privacy. So when they're at home, they would say same thing. I'm me. I'm independent. I should be allowed to do this and that. Mom, this you can shut up. Allow me the opportunity to grow up by myself, even if making mistake. So I'd like to hear, because you guys are real practicing doctors.
Yeah. So that's a good question. So you're saying that, I think what you're describing as kids are growing up anyway, they are trying to become more independent and autonomous and be their own person. So that's what's happening developmentally anyway at this age. And they are deciding, what do I want to tell my parents and what I don't want to tell my parents. And then I hear your additional concern about, as doctors, do we add to that impression that they don't have to tell their parents things because they're old enough, basically. I think, and someone had the question about what, can I tell my kid, I'm your mom, I need to know. So the thing is that, every child is going to be different, and there's no magic sentence that you can say to your kid that will make all kids tell you what's going on with them. So what we're really trying to go for here is understanding your individual kid. We're really trying to elicit their cooperation and their willingness to open up to us. And it's going to be different from situation to situation.
One of the challenges that you're coming up against is called HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and something Act, Accountability Act. Health insurance, anyway, HIPAA. It is important for the doctor to have a chance to talk with the child one-on-one, because most children will be inhibited talking about things, but at some point then the doctor should talk with you. There's differences in terms of HIPAA based on the child's age, and of course once they reach 18, then they become, in the law's eyes, adults. I think it's important for families to be able to communicate. So as a doctor myself, and I work at the hospital, so this is often when people have had a very serious crisis, and so HIPAA is a federal law, but it means that we as doctors can't give out information on an adult patient without the patient's permission. However, we can always listen. And so one of the things that you can do is to let the doctor know what some of your concerns are. And I think over time, even if you're not in the session with the child during the session, there can be some communication after. So, and of course, if your child does allow you to be part of it, then that can be helpful. But initially, it is hard for kids to talk about it, and so you shouldn't feel like the child is just in this vacuum and that the doctor's never going to talk to you. But if the child, especially if the child is now legally an adult, the patient does get to say who the doctor gives out information to. But you can always give information to the doctor. So at least you're part of the conversation, and then the doctor will probably want to open up the conversation to you when he or she is able to. So I've done this lots of times. People will email me, people will call or fax, and then give me some information. And then meanwhile, behind the scenes, I might be saying to the young person, you know, your mom's really worried. I'd like to be able to talk with her. And then, you know, the young person says, no, I don't want you to talk to my mother. And then we sort of work on it. It's like, can I at least tell your mother that you're feeling sad about this? Can I at least tell your parents this? Or they'll say, you can talk to one parent and not the other, or something like that. And so to not give up and to keep working on that. You shouldn't feel shut out entirely, though, because that wouldn't help.
So my question is, as parents, you understand your kids need help, but you want to see the counselor. If he refuses, what you can do?
If they refuse to let the doctor talk with the
Yes,
parent?
if you want your kid to see the counselor and then you make an appointment, but he don't want to show up. So,
Oh, so if they won't go?
yeah.
Yeah, this is a good question, because actually, where's Linda Lenore, one of the nurses? So this is a common scenario. They get there and they won't get out of the car. Okay, so I'm going to pull in our child psychiatrist for this. I'm an adult psychiatrist, so I can help the parents, but Dr. Sust has special training.
Special training. So that is a very common scenario. And I think one of the important things is to realize that even if the child doesn't want to go in, I think it's also helpful for you to talk with the psychiatrist as well, just to explain what the situation is. A lot of times you don't really get the chance to explain what's going on, and getting the professional's perspective, even without the child there, might be really helpful. And they might even be able to give you some ideas or some input on how you could eventually talk with your teen and eventually get them to come in. One of the things that I was taught when I was in adult psychiatry residency was to consider even bringing somebody in to come and just provide information and talk about, just provide information about the situation, and to sort of make it a non-threatening sort of situation whereby the teen comes in and just talks about you know, some of the help that you're trying to get for yourself or something along those lines. And to sort of get them to come in and realize that it's a safe space, and to be able to come and talk about some of the stress that's going on back at home, and to try to deflect the attention off of the teen and more onto the situation itself.
Have you ever gone out to the parking lot to see the young person?
That situation hasn't come up yet. Has that come up for you? Okay.
In rare circumstances, but yes. And the other thing I would say is peers are really important to teens. So if you guys know people in their social circle who have had mental health care before, that might be a really good bridge for them. They can talk about it with their friends, and it kind of normalizes it a little bit.
I was gonna say part of the problem is like the stigma and feeling like they don't want, you know, their peers or other people to know that they're seeking help. And so there are like on campus in high school settings, there's like counselor and therapists available, but also recognizing that there's other resources in the community and that they might feel more comfortable if it's not at school where they feel like their peers can see them, but something that's more confidential for them and kind of respecting them and like their space. They might feel more likely to want to go if it's like within like PAMP for other away from school, those kinds of settings. So there's other resources as well.
Just one final thing. I've definitely had my share of sessions where the teen didn't want to talk when they came in. And I know it sometimes seems a little bit difficult to believe that we're going to sit there in silence the whole time. And we don't do that. Typically we have other techniques where, you know, we'll even play a game or we'll talk about some other topic. There are ways to engage with the teen, but a lot of it is just trying to get them to come in and just talk about any part of their life or any part of the situation first. So definitely continue connecting with your teen. Maybe even consider talking to your teen's friend. They're likely, if you're concerned about something, I wouldn't be surprised if their friends are also aware of it as well.
Our teens are going through growth spurts, so they do eat a lot and eat often. There's no other obvious sign that they are they have eating disorder. How can we tell if they do have eating disorder or not? I mean, how much? And it's overthink very often when they're stressed. Is that eating disorder?
Well, it's important to recognize that there's a lot of different types of disordered eating. So there's anorexia where you're eating like less than you should be, or there's Okay, thank you. There's also like binge eating, where you're eating large amounts at like one setting at a time. And so it's like as parents or people who observe like their eating habits, it's important to kind of like note those kinds of things. It's also when it comes to like what's an appropriate amount of eating, it kind of also has to do with like how active they are, and just that they're getting like a balanced diet. So that they're not like saying, oh, I'm going to be gluten-free and then just cut out carbs and things like that. So they have to have a trying to have that well-balanced meal. I don't know if anyone has anything else to.
I mean, if you have questions and you're not sure, a pediatrician's a good place to start because they probably monitor things like weight and vital signs, and they can tell you if they're having any abnormalities because of the way that they're eating and their physical health. And then they could also help refer you for an evaluation if needed. But generally people don't have an eating disorder unless it's causing some sort of problem for them. So there should be some consequence of it. If they're just, I don't know the details, but there should be some sort of consequence.
If they seem perfectly happy and they're not that focused on food, it could be, as you said, a growth spurt. So if it's sort of like, Mom, I'm hungry, what's in the fridge? Then that would probably not be as worrisome as if they're spending lots of time thinking about food, obsessing about food, and you notice that they're unhappy in some way. Okay, I think we're hitting 8:30. I want to make sure to introduce everybody one more time. Oh, one more question?
In the front.
Having kids have some belief will help school and help family relation as well.
Having kids will?
Yeah,
Say that
life in
again.
school and also life in family. If the kids have some belief, like a religious belief, will that help everything?
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. I think you bring up a great point. Spirituality is clearly a part of our conceptualization of wellness. And, we talk a lot about having balance in every person's life, and spirituality is obviously a prominent part of that. Everybody's going to be a little bit different, though, in terms of how the balance of different aspects of wellness come into play. So I guess what I'll say is that this is kind of dodging the question, but it varies from child to child. No single child. There's no one rule that applies to every single child. But I will say that for a lot of people, you should definitely be thinking about the spirituality end of things, and if that's an important part of your life.
The sense of community is important, and so I would say that if your family is religious, that's important, but I wouldn't then go out and try to acquire a religion. It should be part of what works for your family, but the sense of community with a religious place, or anything that brings people together and that they feel part of a greater whole, I think can be a very good thing, whether it's a formal, organized religion or not.
And just to make a quick comment too, religion can be helpful for some kids to help find meaning in what they're doing and in life, but it's also in the mental health field a concerning sign if your child is feeling like there's no meaning in life or hopeless about the future, and those start looking like signs of depression. So that's another thing I want to mention as well. Okay, so last question.
Based on your experience for the general population in high school students, what percentage have seen mental health professionals, and what signs would trigger parents to take the kids to see a mental health professional?
Well, it should be no surprise. None of your kids ever want to see me in my office ever. But I don't have any specific numbers. It's relatively low also because of the fact that there aren't as many child psychiatrists available. So, let's see here.
I've heard that up to 25% of young people have mental health problems and that less than half seek treatment. But as far as like the number of people in high school, I also know that it's pretty prevalent, like upwards of 10% as far as kids who, think about suicide or ending their life. So that's definitely a concerning number as well. So, you don't have to be sure there's something wrong with your child to take them in or encourage them to get to seek treatment. If you have concerns, then that might be a good reason to just kind of open that door if they're receptive.
Right. More than likely, you've known your kids their entire lives, and I would argue that there are telltale signs that you can pick up on already that there's something might be wrong. And it's nothing. I don't think there's anything wrong with even talking with somebody else about it and trying to figure out if this is something that you should be thinking about seeking a professional opinion about. And one of the nice parts about a lot of the community outreach that we do is that we do talk about these situations. And I do encourage you guys to come out and continue to participate. And if you ever have any questions, please feel free to ask us, and we can provide a lot more information. I know each child's case is very unique, and so it would be difficult to give you like one sentence that would cover the entirety of the diversity in this room right now.
We want you to feel like it's okay to ask for help. Just as you would see a doctor for physical issues and not try to just, ignore it. If you think it would be helpful, it's often helpful to see a doctor. There's more stigma attached to mental health issues. We know that, but we're trying to work on that gradually. And the analogy I always like to use, this is actually very helpful for Asian parents because I wear glasses or contacts, right? A lot of us do. And if you just ignored that, your life would not be any better, right? You would just, I would drive into trees if I wasn't wearing glasses or contacts, but I take care of it. I'm not a worse person for having contact lenses. People who have perfect eyesight aren't better than me, they just have perfect eyesight. So once I address this issue, then I can go on with my life and I'm okay. So as mental health professionals, we probably have an easier time looking for asking for help. But I know when my daughter had trouble sleeping, I said, let's go see the psychologist and let's talk about insomnia. And at first she was like, oh, that's terrible. And so I was like, what's the downside, right? You spend an hour, 2 hours with the doctor, they might have some ideas, and it helped. And there was really no downside other than the embarrassment around it. But if you sense that your teenager can use help with something, then treat it like you would treat stomach aches or a sprained ankle. It doesn't mean they're a bad person. It means that they could use some help with something. So I'm aware that we're out of time. Thank you all for your thing. Please fill out your evaluations, turn them in. It's a very important part of things. And again, I want to introduce everybody that was part of it. Dr. Alan Louie, Dr. Amy Poon, both on the faculty, Jason Lee, undergraduate, Amia Nash, postbac intern, Dr. Megan Baker, child psychiatry fellow, Dr. Stephen Sust, child psychiatry fellow. Somebody left already. There's Grace and Grace. Grace Lee and Grace Liu, psychiatry residents, and Dr. David Carrion on the video, and also the most unsuitable boy ever. And I should mention Dr. Jonathan Lee, also on video. So when I said Jonathan Lee is a nice boy, he really is. Thank you all. Good night.